So today I want to show you how I connected the back panel of the cardigan to the two front panels. Because the cardigan is knit bottom up, I decided to use a 3-needle bind off to do this. Just because it seems like less effort to me to bind something off and connect it at the same time rather than to bind it off and then seam it together. If you haven't done a 3-needle bind off before, don't worry. Neither have I before doing this project. I have done it once before, and because rather hilariously I knit this entire back panel wrong and had to rip out 25,440 stitches worth of lace and then reknit the whole thing, which I just finished this morning. So I'm feeling quite well, ambivalent if I'm honest, but trying to focus on the positive side that at least now it's done again. So a 3-needle bind off is not nearly as complicated as it might sound. If you've ever done a double brim on a hat where you've folded up the bottom and then joined them together, it's basically the same as that. The only thing that makes this ever so slightly different is because we're attaching two panels at the front, we're going to do a 3-needle bind off to attach one panel. Then we're going to switch to a regular bind off in the middle, which will create the back of the neck, which is not attached to a front panel. And then we're going to join the second piece with more 3-needle bind off over here. It's not tricky, I promise. The only thing is to just double check your numbers in the middle bit, because if you get the number here wrong, then you won't have the right number of stitches left over here. But as always, the pattern tells you exactly how many to do. And if you get to the end and it's wrong, you can just unpick and go back and adjust. It's not the end of the world. So, where am I in knitting the pattern at the moment? Well, the first thing I would have done is knit the back panel, which we've got here. It's basically a rectangle with some ribbing at the bottom. Everything is still live on the needles at this point. The other pieces I have are the two front panels. This one is the front left panel, and you can tell because the shaping is on the left hand side, on the right side of the work, which means when you place this on your body, it will go on the left side of your body. So when I say front left and front right, I mean as worn on your body. So we have the front left panel. Now here I've got them laid out. This is right side up and this is also right side up. That is not the way to connect them. You want to flip them over so the right sides are facing each other, and so the shaping is in the middle. So the front left panel will go on the left and the front right panel will go on the right. And when you wear it, if you imagine flipping it this way, everything will be in the right place. As long as your shaping is in the middle and your right sides are together, you've done it right. But again, don't worry, it's just a bind off. You can unpick it and do it again if you get it wrong. I know, because I did. The other piece we've got is the front right panel. So when the right side is facing you, the shaping is on the right hand side, and when it's worn on your body, the panel will cover your right hand side. So this piece will go right sides together over here, and you can see now the shaping of it. It looks like an inside out cardigan with no sleeves in pieces, which is what we want. That's where we want to be, so that's all fine. Please ignore these yellow bits. Those are my lifelines that I haven't taken out yet. They're not relevant anymore. So the front left panel, the stitches are still live on my needles, and I've set it up with a stopper on one end and a needle on the other end and a point protector just so nothing falls off. You want the needle to be on the right hand side of the work with the wrong side of the work facing you, because this is how we're going to connect. We're going to work from right to left this way, so we want the needles to be on the right hand side of the work. You will have the wrong sides of the front panels facing you and the right side of the back panel underneath. I'm going to move my hands out the way so you can have a good look and see how it's all laid out. Okay, On the front right panel, I've got the same setup, stopper on the left, needle, and a needle stopper on the right. You do need officially 3 needles to do a 3 needle bind off. One on each of the pieces you're joining together, and one to be your working needle on the other side. So, what I'm going to do first is move the front left panel out of the way, just so I've got a bit more room to work. Pop that down there. Okay, and then I'm going to get myself set up. Now please excuse me, I've got some of my daughter's toy horses on the table to remind me where the edges of my screen are. So if they get knocked into view at any point, please just carry on and ignore them. They just want to play with us. Right. Okay, so 3 needle bind off. I'm going to use the working yarn from the back panel just because it happens to be in the right place, and it's fallen on the floor, so that's going to be a bit messy, but that's fine. So this working yarn is attached to the back panel, and the back panel looks like I'm about to knit a right side row. Take that stopper off, and the piece I'm attaching first is the front right panel. So that's right side of your body as worn, shaping on the right hand side of the work when you look at it from the right side. Right, basically. So all we do for the 3 needle bind off, oh, and this working needle is the other end of the back panel. It is attached, it's just a very long needle. So you want to hold the 2 needles that you're binding together in one hand, and honestly that's the trickiest bit for me, is holding the 2 needles together in one hand and managing 2 sets of stitches and hoping they don't fall off, because I'm still a bit nervous about dropping stitches on lace. I mean, I think everyone is, because lace is just a nightmare to pick up. So, working yarn however you would normally tension, and all you're going to do is work through the first needle on the front needle, the first stitch on the front needle and the first stitch on the back needle, loop the yarn through and knit 2 together. Oh, look at that, I've messed up actually the first few are a bit fiddly. I went through the yarn there, I'll just fix that, and then pop both stitches off the needle. It's fiddly, but it's not difficult. Then we do the same thing for the next stitch, working through both of them, dropping them both off, and now that we've got 2 stitches on the needle, just as you would with a standard bind off, pass the one on the right over the one on the left. First stitch bound off. And for the front right panel, we don't need to be counting at this point. The pattern does tell you exactly how many stitches to bind off, but you just keep going until you have run out of stitches on your front right panel. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to let this run at normal time for a little bit, because I want you to see that I am very slow and I am I'm not a natural at doing this yet. I don't have that. I find it much easier to do in the round for a hat brim. Doing it like this flat is fiddly. And also, you know, I'm a bit self-conscious because I'm on camera. Even if you can't see me. At least I hope you can't see me. I'm kind of leaning forward a bit. Maybe you can see me. Oh, blimey. Through the back one, through the front one, cast both off, and pop one over. Okay, so I'm just going to pause and let you see what's going on. You get a really nice neat seam on the inside, and on the right side, there's not much to see. I'll flip it over again a bit further along, but you can see it's a really neat join, just like beautifully picked up stitches, but without having to pick any stitches up. I don't mind picking up stitches actually, I used to, but I think it's like all things, once you get the hang of it and it becomes muscle memory, it's not a big deal anymore. I always think anything new is hard, and anything you've done a million times is not. The tricky bit is sticking with it when it's hard and getting to the point where it's not. But isn't that true of everything? I suppose some things never get easy. Okay, we've done a bit more, so I want to have another look at the right side. That's a beautifully neat seam. So even though I'm doing it slowly and it looks a bit cack-handed, you still get a nice neat result, and that's the point, isn't it? Look at that. Lovely and neat. I'm very happy with that. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so we're up to the last few stitches to do, and this is where it gets a bit fiddly again. The start and the end are definitely the worst bit of a 3-needle bind off. Oh dear. There we go, that's better. Okay, penultimate stitch. I like penultimate, it's a good word. Last one. Okay, so now that all the stitches are off this, the front right panel is totally attached. I'm just going to pause there, put my point protectors on, and have a look to see where we are. So we've still got the working yarn up here, plenty of tails on this side. On the inside, we have got a really nice neat seam, and as well as joining the two pieces together, this is going to give you some stability at the shoulders, which is actually really important in garments. I prefer to have a seam across the shoulders because this is where all of the weight of the garment is supported. And as you'll know, a bigger garment weighs more than a smaller garment. And so having some structure around the shoulders can really help with how it sits on you and how the piece stays in shape over time as you love it, hopefully, and wear it and show it off to the world. So on the right side, it looks very much like a join would if you'd picked up stitches. It's slightly more pronounced, but not excessively so. And I think it's so much easier to get a neat finish with this than with seaming in a sewn manner. Maybe mattress stitch, if you wanted an invisible join, would be neater, and you'd be welcome to do that, but then you wouldn't have the stability of the seam, which I like. And I am extremely happy because the first time I did this is the moment when I looked at the join and realised that my back panel lace was completely wrong because it didn't line up. But look at that, that lines up. Perfect. Okay, so up until this point, you won't have had to count your stitches as you work because it's just a case of binding off all the stitches on the front right panel. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use a normal bind off, just, you know, knit the next stitch and then pass the right hand stitch over the left hand stitch. And we're going to do that for a while, not a big while, just some stitches in the middle here. And what that will do is bind off the live stitches on the back panel to create the back of the neck without connecting it to either of the front panels. So the pattern will tell you exactly how many stitches to bind off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. So because you've already got one stitch on your right hand needle, when you're counting bound off stitches, you knit one, and as soon as you're passing this stitch on the right over the one on the left, this is the action that counts as binding off a stitch. So that there is 1. If I'd not had a stitch on this needle already and I had to knit one and then knit the second one, I wouldn't count until I passed that right over the left. That's the action that you count. You count how many times you do that bit. Doesn't matter how many stitches you knit to get to there. The passing right over left is the bit you count. So that's 1. Okay, that's how many stitches the pattern tells me to cast off. I'm just going to count what I've got left and make sure that it's the right number, just in case. Perfect. You should have the same number of stitches here as you do live stitches on the panel you're about to connect. And yes, the pattern tells you the exact numbers, of course. So, here is my front left panel. Again, you know it's the front left panel because the shaping is on the left, on the right side of the work. And it's set up, stopper on this end, working needle on this end. And all we're going to do here is exactly what we did before. Oh, cheeky. So you should have the same number of stitches on each of these left-hand needles. They should all be live. Your working yarn is attached to your back piece and you've got 1 stitch on your right-hand needle. And all we're going to do is a 3 needle bind off, just like we did on the other side, which is always fiddliest at the start and the end. Oh, and this is extra fiddly because look, where I had to unpick the last one, I've split the yarn. And now this stitch is not mounted nice and neatly. Okay. I'm just going to pull this up a bit so the stitches don't fall off while I fix this. You can see here the stitch underneath has just been caught ever so slightly. There we go. Okay. Right. That is probably the biggest risk of having to do things more than once. The more times you do something, the more opportunities there are to make a mistake. Okay. Through that stitch, wrap, through, and we're off. It's going, uh-oh. What's going on here? Cheeky little end. Making me think I had an extra stitch. My God, I nearly had kittens. Like, oh yeah, after going to the effort of counting the stitches and making sure, actually knitting it and then finding out on video, and I don't get back on there. Get back on there. That there's an extra stitch. Could you imagine? Okay. There we have it. Okay, I didn't bring any scissors. So I'm just going to pop a point protector on there. And now we can have a look. Just going to move that out of the way. Okay. So we now have 2 front panels with shaping in the middle, all connected with this beautiful, neat seam on the inside that's going to give us some lovely stability. And if we flip it around, you can see the lace lines up beautifully. You've got a lovely neat join here. Lace lines up in the same way on the other side. We've got a back of the neck here that's just waiting. We'll pick up, when we pick up for the neckband, I'm going to pick up along here, around here, and then down here. So this will all be one beautiful, neat bit of ribbing. And if I turn this around, oh, everything's connected to everything. Oh, it's not as chaotic as it looks, I promise. Okay, so there is the back panel. Here is a front panel. Here is another front panel. And you can see there, starting to look like a cardigan. And let's just check the sides. So when we seam the sides together here, it's a bit hard because the ends are rolling, but you can just about see the lace is going to match up under the arms there as well. So it lines up at the shoulders and it lines up under the arms here.